Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel African Tales by Ifee, a place where every rustle of leaves, every distant call, holds a story waiting to be told. Settle in, breathe deep, release the day, and find a cozy spot as we journey together into the heart of Nigeria, where wonders unfold. Today, we're leaving behind the rush of the world and stepping into a realm of timeless tales. Join me now as we unlock the magic and spirit of an African story crafted just for you. The Martins family lived in a quiet estate on the edge of Lagos, an elegant duplex adorned with trimmed hedges, white walls, and the gentle scent of hibiscus in the air. Favour Martins was a graceful woman in her mid-30s, loved dearly by her husband Sam, and devoted to their 12-year-old twins, Victor and Victoria. With her business expanding rapidly and Sam working long hours at a multinational firm, they agreed it was time to hire a live-in house help to support their growing needs at home. Through a popular influencer's advert on Instagram advertising a nanny agency, Favour contacted the agency and employed Gloria, a well-spoken, soft-eyed, and seemingly humble young lady. She came with tidy braids, a worn Bible, and a tightly pressed resume that made her appear perfect. But beneath her sweet smile and calculated curtsies, Gloria nursed a dark ambition. Unbeknownst to the Martins, Gloria had not come merely to serve. She had watched Favour from a distance through social media, drawn in by the family's wealth, the children's innocence, and most of all, Sam's quiet handsomeness. To Gloria, this was not just a job. It was an opportunity to rewrite her own story of suffering, rejection, and poverty. In a plastic container buried deep in her travel bag, she hid small packets of powdered poison, gathered from a shady herbalist who had promised they would kill silently and slowly. She planned to slip it into Favour's morning tea and lace the children's evening porridge. Once they were out of the way, she would seduce Sam, console him through grief, and eventually convince him to marry her. It was a plan years in the making, but Gloria hadn't counted on one thing: children see more than adults. Victor and Victoria, though playful and bubbly, were unusually observant. From the very first week, they noticed how Gloria stared too long at their father, and how she sometimes muttered things to herself in the kitchen when she thought no one was listening. One night, Victoria whispered to her twin, "Gloria scares me. She watches Mummy's tea like it's a secret." Victor, always the braver one, promised to keep an eye on her. And so, while Favour went about her busy routine, and Sam remained blind to the shifting energy in his home, a silent war was already underway, one where innocence might just be the key to survival. Gloria rose earlier than usual that Monday, her steps light and face glowing with purpose. She had been slowly gaining Favour's trust over the past few weeks, taking care of the twins with maternal gentleness, cooking elaborate meals, even offering to rub Sam's shoulders after long days of work which Sam declined. Her presence in the house had become a strange comfort, like a familiar tune with a discordant note no one noticed at first. But that morning, she intended to cross the point of no return. While humming a gospel tune, she carefully stirred a teaspoon of the deadly powder into the steaming cup of lemongrass tea she had just brewed for Favour. The poison would not kill immediately. It would mimic fatigue, migraines, and eventually organ failure, slow, tragic, and untraceable. Just as she was about to carry the tray upstairs, Victoria walked into the kitchen, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Is that for Mummy?" she asked sweetly. Gloria froze, her hand trembling ever so slightly. "Yes, darling," she replied with forced warmth. "Mummy needs her tea to start the day right." Victoria tilted her head, a habit she had when she didn't believe someone. "Mummy said she wasn't feeling well and won't be drinking anything till after breakfast." Gloria's heart skipped. This wasn't in the plan. "Really?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes," Victoria said with certainty. "She told me and Victor last night. Daddy said she needs to rest." Gloria quickly set the tray down, her mind racing. The tea couldn't just sit there. It was a trap waiting to happen. Before she could react further, Victor appeared, holding their mother's phone. Auntie Gloria, Mummy said you should help her find the shopping list she had made earlier in the day, he said innocently. Gloria's heart dropped. If Favour came downstairs and took the tea out of habit, everything would unravel too soon. She said okay while pretending to search for the shopping list, leaving the poisoned tea behind. But unknown to her, Victor and Victoria exchanged a glance, one that spoke louder than words. They had noticed how Gloria stirred that cup, how she acted differently when she thought no one was watching. As Gloria climbed the stairs, confident in her performance, she didn't see Victor sneak into the kitchen and replace the poisoned tea with a fresh one. Gloria's perfect plan was already beginning to crumble, and she didn't even know it. Gloria stood outside the master bedroom, carefully balancing her mask of innocence as she handed Favour the list. Madam, I found the list, so I brought it up, she said, her eyes scanning the room. Favour, seated on the edge of the bed in her satin robe, nodded distractedly and reached for the phone. Thank you, Gloria, she murmured, her voice tired. You've been such a help lately. Gloria's stomach twisted with perverse satisfaction. That trust, that warm, undeserved trust, was what made the betrayal so delicious. She glanced at Sam's framed photo on the dresser, imagining what it would be like to stand in Favour's place. But as she turned to leave, she heard Favour murmur under her breath, I keep feeling weak lately, as if my body is failing me. Gloria's smile returned as she descended the stairs. It was beginning. Downstairs, the twins were no longer giggling children playing with blocks. They were on a mission. Victor had hidden the poisoned tea in the garden and replaced it with a clean cup before anyone noticed. They had also begun leaving small clues, drawings of a woman pouring powder into a cup, little notes tucked beneath cushions. To them, it was a game with very real consequences. We have to protect Mummy, Victoria whispered that evening as they played in the corner. Auntie Gloria is trying to do something bad. Victor nodded. Let's tell Daddy. But Victoria hesitated. He won't believe us. Grown-ups never do. Instead, they decided to set a trap. That night, they borrowed Favour's phone while she was in the bathroom and secretly activated the voice recorder. They placed it beneath the dining table where Gloria often mumbled to herself while cleaning up. The next morning, Favour found the oddest drawing tucked beneath her pillow, a picture of a woman with angry eyes, holding a cup with black swirls rising from it. Victor, she called out, holding the paper. He looked up innocently but said nothing. Something began to tug at her, an instinct sharpened by motherhood. At that same moment, Sam came down the stairs holding his tie, asking about his missing cufflinks. Gloria, ever attentive, offered to help find them. She moved a little too close, her fingers brushing against his shoulder. Sam shifted uncomfortably, smiling politely. Thank you, but I'll manage. But Favour saw the look in Gloria's eyes, one that lingered too long, one no house help should give another woman's husband. That moment changed something. Favour's instincts, once dormant, were now wide awake. And Gloria, unknowingly, had just awakened the lioness. Gloria paced her room that night, heart pounding, frustration bubbling beneath her skin. Her plan was taking too long. Favour was still alive, and Sam, though kind, remained emotionally distant. She needed to act fast before her window closed. That evening, she powdered her face, applied a subtle coat of red lipstick, and tied her wrapper just tight enough to reveal her waist. She waited until Favour stepped out to the pharmacy and the children were asleep. Then she struck. Sam was in the living room, flipping through reports on his laptop. Gloria walked in with a tray of chilled juice and a sultry smile. Olga, you've been working so hard. You need to relax, she said, placing the tray beside him. Sam glanced up, startled. Oh, thank you, he said politely. But before he could reach for the drink, Gloria sat on the armrest beside him, too close. You work too hard, she whispered, letting her fingers lightly graze his arm. You deserve someone who can really take care of you. Sam immediately stiffened. "Gloria, that's inappropriate," he said, rising to his feet. But she stood too, blocking his path, her eyes gleaming. "I know you feel it. Madam doesn't even notice you anymore. I see the way you look at me." Sam's face darkened. "Stop right now." But Gloria, fueled by obsession and desperation, leaned in and tried to kiss him, just as the door opened. Favour stood frozen, pharmacy bag in hand, eyes wide. For a second, no one moved. Then Sam shouted, "Favour, it's not what it looks like." But Gloria turned quickly, hoping to spin the narrative. "Madam, he forced himself on me," she cried out, suddenly shrinking back like a victim. But before Favour could respond, another sound filled the room. The voice recorder Victor had planted earlier, still hidden under the couch, clicked and played the last recorded snippet. Gloria's voice echoed out, "Tonight I'll make him mine. A little charm in the drink, a little touch, by morning he'll forget her name." Silence. Then Victoria walked in, holding the recorder in her small hands. "We were going to tell you, Mummy," she said quietly. The truth lay naked in the room, and the predator had just become exposed. For several heartbeats, the house was silent, too silent. Favour, her face pale but unreadable, slowly set the pharmacy bag on the table and turned her gaze toward Gloria. No one spoke. Sam looked utterly stunned, shifting between his wife and the woman who had just tried to wreck their home. "Gloria," Favour said calmly, her voice steely, "I want you to sit down." But Gloria didn't move. Her eyes darted toward the door, calculating. "Madam, I can explain," she started, her voice shaking now with panic instead of seduction. "Explain how you poisoned my tea." Favour asked, pulling the original cup from behind the fridge, which Victor had hidden there just in case. "Or how you tried to frame my husband. Or how you've been speaking to yourself like a possessed person under this roof." That moment broke Gloria's composure. Her shoulders slumped, and her face twisted into a mix of rage and desperation. "You don't understand," she shouted. "Everything you have, this house, your children, your husband, should have been mine. You're just lucky." Her words echoed off the walls like gunfire. "I've served men who used me and threw me out like trash. I swore the next time I wouldn't leave empty-handed." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hurt the children. Not really. I needed to be someone in this life." The confession came like floodwaters from a cracked dam. Sam took a slow step back, unable to look at her. Favour walked closer slowly, then reached into her purse and dialed the police. "You will still become someone," she said, "but it'll be behind bars." But just as the call connected, Gloria lunged, not at Sam or Favour, but toward the kitchen. There, she yanked open a drawer and pulled out a knife. "If I can't have it, no one will," she screamed. Sam stepped forward instinctively, shielding Favour. But before Gloria could make another move, a loud crack rang out through the air. Behind her, at the foot of the stairs, stood Victor, holding a heavy porcelain vase from the display shelf, now broken across the back of Gloria's head. She collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Favour ran to her son, wrapping him in trembling arms, her tears flowing freely now. "I was brave, Mummy," he whispered. "Just like you." The police arrived minutes later. Gloria was taken away, broken not just in body but in spirit. The Martins stood together, scarred, shaken, but safe. Or so they thought. Because what they didn't know, what Gloria had never revealed, was that someone else had helped her get the poison. And he wasn't finished yet. 3 days passed. The house was quieter now, but it was the kind of quiet that clung to walls and hovered over dreams. Gloria was in custody awaiting formal charges. Favour had taken a week off work to be with the children, while Sam spent long hours trying to secure the house, changing locks, installing cameras, and doubling security. But no one could fully shake the unease that lingered. Victor, despite his bravery, had started waking up screaming from nightmares. Victoria clung to her mother's side constantly. And Favour, she hadn't touched tea since that day. But as they all tried to piece life back together, Something darker stirred just outside their knowledge. At a small dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town, a man sat with a glass of cheap gin, dialing a burner phone. "She failed," he said into the receiver, "but I won't." His name was Chief Olanrewaju, a wealthy but disgraced businessman whose advances Favour had rejected years ago. Back then, she was just starting out, working as an interior designer. He had tried to woo her with money, cars, even a proposal, but she had chosen love over luxury. Sam. Humiliated and furious, he'd vowed revenge. He had waited, watching from afar as her life blossomed. When he discovered that she and Sam were looking for a house help, he saw the perfect opportunity. Gloria had been one of his side projects, young, desperate, and easy to manipulate. He funded her plot, provided the poison, and coached her on how to win Sam's trust. It was never just about seduction or jealousy. It was about bringing Favour to her knees. Gloria's failure had set him back, but not for long. "Plan B," he said darkly, dialing another number. That same evening, a delivery man showed up at the Martins' gate with a large box. Favour signed for it absent-mindedly. She had ordered some toys online to cheer the twins. But when she opened the box, what lay inside made her blood run cold. It wasn't toys. It was a single black rose, a dead bird, and a small note. "You survived her. Let's see how you survive me." Sam froze when he saw the message. The children were rushed out of the room. Favour's hands trembled, but her eyes burned with fury. "This isn't over," she whispered. "Someone else is pulling the strings." Sam pulled her into an embrace. "Then we fight together." As they held each other, the camera outside flickered, just for a second. And miles away, Chief Olanrewaju watched the footage from a hidden server, smiling. The Martins had won a battle, but the war had just begun. The Martins wasted no time. After the chilling delivery, Sam reached out to his longtime friend, Inspector Tade, a respected but discreet officer in the Lagos State Criminal Investigation Department. Tade arrived that evening, his presence quiet but commanding. He examined the box carefully, gloves on, eyes narrowed. "This isn't random," he said. "The rose, the bird, these are messages, ritualistic symbols. Someone wants you afraid and wants you to know they're watching." He took the note, sniffed it lightly, and nodded. "There's a faint chemical scent, could be handled with gloves, but we'll scan it for prints anyway." Favour sat across the room, holding her children close. "This didn't start with Gloria," she said quietly. "Someone sent her, and they're not done." Tade gave a firm nod. "Then we'll find who did." While Tade began forensic analysis on the box, Sam and Favour decided to go through Gloria's belongings, which they had sealed and left untouched since her arrest. Hidden deep in the lining of her suitcase, beneath layers of clothes, Favour found a folded paper, old, yellowed, and oily. It was a letter. "Gloria, do this and I'll change your life. That woman destroyed me. Bring me her tears and I'll give you gold." There was no name, no signature. But attached to the back was a small sticker, one from a high-end bar Sam used to visit during his bachelor days, the Velvet Room at Samfroze. "Only one man I ever saw drink alone there, in a white agbada with gold cufflinks, Chief Olanrewaju." Favour's face went pale. "You mean that man who tried to propose to me 5 years ago?" The room fell into stunned silence. The pieces were falling into place. Victor and Victoria, seated quietly on the stairs, listened to every word. "Is Chief the one who sent Auntie Gloria?" Victoria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Favour looked at her children and nodded. "We think so, baby." Victor's eyes darkened. "Then we catch him before he sends someone else." That night, the Martins didn't sleep. Sam contacted his tech friend to pull old CCTV data around the house, and Inspector Tade put out a quiet watch on Olanrewaju's known addresses. Meanwhile, Favour did what she always did when danger lurked. She prayed. Not in whispers now, but with fire. "God, expose every hidden enemy," she said aloud, her voice steady. Outside, the security lights flickered again. A figure passed across the far end of the compound wall, unseen by most except by little Victor, who watched from his window. and began to hatch a bold plan of his own. Victor lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. The flickering lights, the mysterious figure, the dark note, they haunted his thoughts. He wasn't afraid for himself, but for his mother. Ever since Gloria's betrayal, he'd seen how Favour smiled less, prayed louder, and hugged longer. He didn't want to wait for another attack. So while everyone slept, he slipped out of bed and quietly crept into his parents' study. There he opened Sam's laptop and navigated to the security footage. He had watched his father do it countless times. Rewinding the footage from that evening, he paused when a tall figure appeared briefly on the edge of the compound wall. The man wore a flowing agbada and a cap, but his face was blurred by shadows. Victor took a screenshot and emailed it to himself. Then he did something dangerous. He responded to the anonymous note that had come with the black rose. Using the number Inspector Tate traced from the burner phone, Victor sent a message. "You tried to hurt my mummy. You sent Auntie Gloria. I know who you are. Leave us alone or I will tell everyone your secret." He hit send before fear could stop him. He didn't tell Victoria or his parents. It was his mission, his way of protecting the family. But Victor didn't know that Chief Olanrewaju was watching. Minutes later, in a private room laced with security monitors and stacks of burner phones, Olanrewaju's phone buzzed. He read the message twice, then chuckled darkly. "Smart boy," he muttered. "Looks like the child is bolder than the father." But instead of anger, he smiled. "Let's raise the stakes." The next morning, Favour screamed when she saw it. On the kitchen counter lay Victor's message printed on paper with a blood-red X marked across it. Attached was a photo, Victor at the gate, taken just yesterday, walking home from school. "He's watching our son," she cried, collapsing into Sam's arms. The house erupted in chaos. Inspector Tate was called immediately. "He's not backing off." "The man's playing psychological warfare," Tate said grimly. "And your son just made himself a target." Sam felt cold dread settle in his bone. He locked down the house and arranged for security to escort the children to school. But Victor, wide-eyed and pale, finally confessed what he'd done. "I just wanted to scare him away," he whispered. "I didn't know he'd come after me." Sam dropped to his knees, holding his son close. "You were brave," he said, tears in his eyes. "But now it's war." The Martins' home became a fortress overnight. Armed security guards patrolled the perimeter. CCTV feeds were monitored round the clock. Victor and Victoria were pulled from school temporarily, now tutored at home under watchful eyes. But the family's peace had been shattered. Favour moved like a woman holding her breath. Sam barely slept. The children clung to their parents with a new fear. Inspector Tate, furious that the predator had dared to threaten a child, vowed to end the nightmare. "He crossed the line," Tate growled. "Now we fight on our terms." That evening, he revealed what he'd found, Chief Olanrewaju's history, past accusations of blackmail, shady dealings, and rumors of ties to ritualists. Nothing had ever stuck. "He's powerful," Tate warned, "but not invincible." With Tate's help, Sam and Favour set a trap. They crafted a fake news leak through a journalist friend. Disgraced chief allegedly behind attempted murder plot. Police investigating new evidence. The story was vague, but enough to spook Olanrewaju. Favour also sent a direct message to him, disguised as a legal firm, stating that the family was preparing a civil suit for endangerment, slander, and attempted murder. It was bait, and Chief took it. Enraged, he called one of his most trusted allies, a tech expert known as Bullet, to wipe the Martins' security systems and deliver a proper warning. What he didn't know was that Tate had already anticipated this and traced the call. Bullet's location lit up in real time. "We have him," Tate muttered. "Now let's flush the snake from his hole." That night, Bullet broke into the Martins' compound, but instead of a dark, unguarded house, he was greeted by flashing lights and armed officers. Within minutes, he was in cuffs, laptop seized. Sam stood nearby, fists clenched, watching as the coward was dragged away. Under interrogation, Bullet cracked. He spilled everything: how Chief had bankrolled Gloria, how he had tracked Victor, how he had created a shadow network of surveillance. He called it a personal war, Bullet confessed. Said the woman embarrassed him in the past. Said no woman says no to him. With this confession, Tate finally had the ammunition he needed. An arrest warrant was issued. Olanrewaju's estate was raided at dawn, but the chief was gone, vanished before the officers arrived. In his empty room, they found a single photo on the desk, the Martins smiling, and scrawled across it in red ink, "You may have won today, but I always play the long game." The morning after the failed raid, the Martins' home felt colder, quieter, like the eye of a storm had passed, but the winds were circling back. Chief Olanrewaju was now a fugitive, but his absence felt more threatening than his presence. Inspector Tate sat in the Martins' living room, poring over Bullet's confession. "This man is obsessed," he muttered, tapping a photo of Olanrewaju. "And obsessed men are dangerous when cornered." Favour listened silently, her arms wrapped tightly around Victoria, who refused to leave her side. Sam paced back and forth, his jaw tense. "So what now? We wait for him to strike again?" Tate looked up. "No. This time we take control, but it'll require bait, and someone brave enough to dangle it." Later that week, Favour made a bold move. She went on live TV during a women's empowerment interview, knowing it would reach Olanrewaju. Calm and poised, she spoke not of fear, but of resilience. "There are people who want to silence women," she said. "But our strength is not in how loud we scream. It's in how we stand when they try to break us." The host, unaware of the deeper context, applauded her courage. But Olanrewaju, watching from an abandoned compound in Ogun State, seethed with rage. Her defiance fueled him. He scribbled notes furiously. Phase 2. The boy. He hadn't forgotten Victor's bold message. He saw him not just a child, but as a symbol, and symbols needed erasing. Back at the Martins' home, life appeared to return to normal. But Tate had embedded silent alarms, GPS trackers, and even a trained undercover officer posing as a gardener on site. What no one knew, not even the Martins, was that Olanrewaju had already infiltrated their circle again, through someone unexpected, their trusted driver of 3 years, Kunle. Kunle had been blackmailed months ago for a fraud he had committed in his former place of work, and had agreed to feed information in exchange for the safety of his own family. He didn't want to hurt anyone. But now the stakes were rising. That evening, Kunle received a voice note from a new number. "The boy goes missing next Thursday. Make it happen, or your daughter loses a kidney." Kunle dropped the phone, sweating profusely. He stared at a recent photo of Victor on his dashboard, and for the first time he realized he was no longer just a pawn. He was the next weapon. Kunle didn't sleep that night. He sat behind the wheel of the Martins' SUV, staring into the darkness, hands trembling. The threat against his daughter was real. He'd seen the photos. Olanrewaju had her school schedule, her teacher's name, even her blood type. But how could he betray the family that had trusted him for 3 years? Favour had once paid his wife's hospital bill without asking for repayment. Sam had offered to co-sign a loan for his home. Victor and Victoria called him Uncle Kunle. He felt sick to his stomach. But Olanrewaju's voice rang in his ears. The boy goes missing next Thursday. That gave him 6 days. 6 days to either become a monster or a martyr. The next morning, Kunle drove as usual, dropping off Sam at work, picking up supplies, chauffeuring the twins to their tutoring center. But everything felt heavier. His eyes scanned mirrors, his heart beat faster at every checkpoint. By evening, he had made up his mind. He couldn't hurt Victor. He had to confess. That night, while everyone else slept, Kunle knocked quietly on Sam and Favour's bedroom door. "Sir, madam, I need to tell you something," he said, tears already forming in his eyes. He told them everything about the blackmail, the threats, the plan to kidnap Victor, and Olanrewaju's reach. Sam stared at him, stunned. Favour was silent for a long moment before finally asking, "Why now?" Kunle dropped to his knees. Because I remember the day Madam gave me a blanket during Harmattan. You didn't see it, but I cried that night. I can't betray that kindness. Inspector Tate was called immediately. Instead of arresting Kunle, he proposed a risky but brilliant counter-strategy. Fake the kidnapping. Let's make Olanrewaju think he's winning, Tate said. Then we corner him with everything we've got. The Martins were hesitant, terrified of involving Victor in such a scheme. But Kunle shocked them by volunteering to play the part. Let me be the bait, he said. Let me protect the boy like I should have from the beginning. After a long silence, Sam looked at Favour, who nodded slowly. We do this carefully, she said, and we make sure it ends for good. As plans were drawn, clothes prepared, and signals rehearsed, no one noticed Victoria slipping out of the room. In her tiny notebook, she scribbled something. If Victor goes missing, I go too. Because what Olanrewaju didn't know was that he wasn't just facing a family. He was facing a fortress. Thursday arrived with a tension so thick it wrapped itself around every breath the Martins took. The house was eerily calm, as if it too held its breath. Victor, though young, had been briefed just enough to understand. It's like hide and seek, Sam told him gently. Only this time Daddy's hiding with you. Kunle was in place, wired and tracked. A separate SUV had been arranged to fake the abduction. Inspector Tate's team had set up surveillance vans in 3 directions around the estate, with sharpshooters on standby. Everything was mapped out. At exactly 1:30 p.m., Kunle picked Victor up from his tutoring center. The boy climbed in silently, glancing once at his uncle Kunle, who gave him a faint, reassuring nod. Then they disappeared down the agreed back route. An hour later, chaos broke out. Favour called the police, voice trembling as she recited her lines. My son's been taken. The story quickly spread through neighborhood watch groups, community alerts, and social media. A massive search operation was launched. Meanwhile, in a concealed underground safe house, Victor sat quietly playing a board game with Sam and one of Tate's officers. Can I have jollof when this is done? He asked innocently. Sam smiled through the lump in his throat. You'll have 2 plates, champ. Meanwhile, Kunle texted the agreed-upon message to the number Olanrewaju had used. The boy is secured. Awaiting next instruction. It was the final bait, and it worked. Within 10 minutes, a reply came with chilling precision. Bring him to the old petrol station in Isheri. Alone, no cops, midnight. But just as Tate was celebrating the breakthrough, a separate alert came in, a signal from the estate perimeter. Someone had breached the compound. Back at the Martins' home, Victoria had vanished. The guard swore she had been seen in the backyard moments ago. Favour's heart stopped. Then they found it, her note, scribbled in pencil and stuck to the fridge. If they're taking Victor, I'm going too. I followed Uncle Kunle. Don't worry. I'm hiding well. Panic surged through Favour's body. She's not with Kunle, she screamed. Sam staggered, feeling the weight of a new disaster. Tate's eyes darkened. We've been distracted. Someone else may have used the plan against us. And far away in a dirty grey car parked along a bush path near Isheri, Victoria sat quietly in the back seat, beside a man she didn't recognize until he turned and smiled. Hello, my dear. You must be Victoria. Let's go find your brother. Victoria stared at the man beside her in the dim car. He looked like someone's grandfather, grey beard, soft voice, kind eyes, but something about him felt wrong. The way he kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. The way the door locks clicked automatically the moment she entered. Where are we going? She asked, her small voice firm. The man smiled thinly. To your brother. You wanted to follow him, didn't you? Victoria hesitated, clutching her tiny handbag. Inside it was a pink beaded bracelet that doubled as a GPS tracker, Favour's last-minute gift that morning. In case you wander again, her mother had joked. Now it might be her only hope. While the man, Olanrewaju in disguise, drove deeper into the bush path, Victoria tapped the beads twice, then once more, activating the emergency signal. Back at the Martins' residence, chaos had escalated into sheer horror. The GPS alert on Victoria's bracelet pinged, showing her moving in the opposite direction of Kunli's decoy route. "She's been taken," Tade said coldly, grabbing his radio. "Scrambled the team. All eyes on the Isheri axis now." Favour collapsed to her knees, wailing. "They have my baby, again." Sam held her tightly, but he too was unraveling. The plan that was meant to trap Olanrewaju had backfired. "This is it," Tade muttered. He was never after just one child. He wanted both, a legacy for his revenge. Meanwhile, at the fake drop point, Kunle waited with Victor in the hidden van, unaware of the new twist. When Sam called to inform him, he nearly broke down. "She must have hidden in the trunk," he said, trembling. "I checked the car, but I didn't check the spare tire space." In the forest clearing where Olanrewaju stopped, Victoria was led out of the car and into an abandoned bungalow. There, dim candlelight flickered against walls scrawled with old ritual symbols. "We'll wait for your brother here," Olanrewaju said, offering her a glass of water. Victoria said nothing. She remembered everything her mother taught her. "Don't show fear, watch everything. Let them think you're harmless." Slowly, she scanned the room, 3 exits, 1 locked cabinet, and a phone plugged into a solar charger. She looked up and asked, "Do you have games on your phone?" Olanrewaju laughed and handed it to her dismissively. "What harm can you do, little girl?" But Victoria wasn't just a little girl. She opened the browser, found Google Maps, and dropped a pin. Then she typed a silent message into notes. "This is where I am. Please come quickly." She hit save. Seconds later, the phone auto-synced to the cloud, and in Tate's surveillance command center, the location pinged loud and clear. The lion's den had been mapped, and the rescue was about to begin. As the pinned location pulsed on the map, Inspector Tate's team sprang into action. The coordinates led to an isolated part of Isheri's forest belt, a perfect hideout for a man like Chief Olanrewaju. Tate quickly assembled a special unit, silent weapons, night goggles, aerial drone support. "We go in fast, we go in clean," he said. "No mistakes." The girls inside. Sam insisted on going along against protocol. "She's my daughter," he said, voice sharp with grief and fury. Tate hesitated but agreed. Favour stayed back at headquarters, pacing like a caged animal. She held onto her prayer beads, whispering Psalm 91 under her breath, refusing to let go of hope. Meanwhile, inside the abandoned house, Victoria sat patiently, eyes calm though her heart beat like a drum. Olanrewaju paced the room, agitated. "Where is the boy?" he muttered. "Why haven't they come?" His phone buzzed. It was a message from an anonymous number. Abort. "They know, leave now." But it was too late. Just as he turned to act, the building was engulfed by a flash of lights and voices. "Lagos State Police, do not move." The front and back entrances burst open simultaneously. Sam, flanked by 2 officers, rushed in. "Victoria!" he cried. She ran to him without hesitation, burying her face in his chest. "Daddy!" behind them. Tate tackled Olanrewaju to the floor. "Game over, Chief," he said. "This time, you don't vanish." Olanrewaju was dragged out, furious and shouting about curses, betrayal, and revenge. "You think you've won? I planned deep. You just plucked leaves," he roared. But the family didn't respond. They had their daughter. They had their peace. Sam held Victoria as the team led them to the rescue van. Over the radio, Favour's cry of relief echoed across the line. Tate cuffed Olanrewaju personally. "You'll rot," he said, "and not even your money can save you now." As the rescue van pulled away from the forest and into safety, Sam looked down at Victoria and whispered, "You saved yourself, my lioness." And she smiled, not because it was over, but because she knew they were no longer afraid. Not of Gloria, not of Olanrewaju, not of the shadows, because this family had faced fire and survived. The morning after the rescue was golden and quiet, the first truly peaceful sunrise the Martins had experienced in weeks. Favour knelt in the living room, tears flowing as she held both twins close, whispering prayers of thanksgiving. Sam sat nearby, exhausted but whole, watching his children with renewed awe. The house that once echoed with whispers of betrayal now rang with the sounds of healing, soft laughter, clinking teacups, whispered apologies. Kunle, the once compromised driver, remained on duty but was under quiet supervision. Favour had forgiven him publicly but privately told him, "Trust is like glass, Kunle. Even when mended, it reflects differently." Kunle nodded with shame but also with gratitude. He had been given a second chance, and he vowed not to waste it. Olanrewaju's arrest made headlines across Nigeria. Former business partners distanced themselves. Hidden crimes surfaced: land fraud, missing girls, ritualist connections. Inspector Tade's team uncovered an entire network of bribed civil servants and corrupted law enforcement agents linked to him. Gloria's cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence revealed even more. He had recruited house helps across Lagos to infiltrate wealthy families. Gloria had been just one of many pawns. "You were lucky," Tate told the Martins. Others weren't. The Martins donated anonymously to victims' families and began advocating for tighter vetting laws on domestic workers. "It's not just about background checks," Favour told a private roundtable. "It's about protecting families from darkness that dresses itself in loyalty." But even as justice was served, Favour couldn't help but carry invisible scars. She watched her children more closely, flinched at sudden knocks, checked every lock twice. "It'll pass," Sam told her gently. "We have light now." Slowly, she began to believe him. The twins, though more cautious, bounced back with time. Victoria drew a picture of their family in her diary, all holding hands under a bright sun. She titled it, "We Win." Sam went back to work part-time, but his eyes no longer looked for profit alone. He'd learned that peace was more valuable than power. And in the soft, healed silences of their home, the Martins began to rebuild, not just their routine but their foundation. Stronger, sharper, unshakable. Though peace had returned, the past had left its fingerprints on the walls. Favour found herself startled by everyday sounds: a dropped spoon, a door creaking open. Sam noticed how she still checked the twins' windows 3 times each night before bed. Trauma, as quiet as it was, had taken residence in their home. The children were resilient, yes, but even Victor had become more withdrawn, sketching darker images and asking tough questions no 6-year-old should. "Mommy," he asked one evening, "why do people who smile sometimes lie?" Favour knelt beside him, heart aching. "Because some people wear masks, baby. But that's why we pray, to see clearly." At work, Sam had become a different man. Colleagues noticed he now spoke less about profits and more about people. He created a new department in his firm focused on employee wellness and even hired a trauma therapist for his team. "If I missed what my family was going through," he said in a meeting, "how many of you are hiding storms too?" His leadership style shifted from control to compassion. Business partners admired the transformation, but it was in his own home that the changes mattered most. He no longer worked late unnecessarily. He showed up to school events. He listened, truly listened, and when Favour had a nightmare one night, waking up in tears, he didn't just hold her. He prayed over her out loud. Meanwhile, the community buzzed with whispers. Neighbors who had once envied the Martins' luxury now saw the cost that came with beauty. Some admired them, others gossiped about the scandal, but Favour remained undeterred. "Let them talk," she told Sam. "Let them know that healing isn't silent." She began hosting small sessions in their home for women who had survived domestic betrayal, wives whose house helps had crossed boundaries, or mothers dealing with silent depression. It wasn't therapy, it was storytelling, and in those stories, something sacred began to rise. Strength, sisterhood, restoration. One day, Victoria peeked into the living room during one of those gatherings and whispered to her brother, "Mummy's building an army." Victor nodded. "An army of light." The courtroom buzzed with subdued tension. The trial of Chief Olanrewaju had become a national spectacle, an expose of power, pride, and manipulation. Journalists lined the corridors. Survivors of his schemes came forward, each story more chilling than the last. Gloria was brought in as a key witness, her appearance pale and hollow. She wore a Navy prison uniform and a face no longer masked by seduction or schemes. As she took the stand, her eyes searched the courtroom and landed on Favour. Their gazes locked, not in hatred, but in something more complex, shame and perhaps envy. "I was promised a new life," Gloria said, her voice trembling. "He said all I had to do was remove the obstacle, Favour." Gasps echoed. The judge called for silence. She continued, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But Favour never wronged me. She was kind. Too kind. That's why I hated her. That's why I obeyed him." The court listened, some in disbelief, others in horror, as Gloria recounted how she had been trained, planted, and watched. She confessed to the poisoning attempt, the seduction trap, and the messages sent to lure the children. "I deserve prison," she whispered, "but he deserves hell." Favour remained composed throughout the proceedings, her fingers intertwined with Sam's. When she was called to testify, the room fell silent. She stood with quiet dignity. "My family was nearly destroyed," she said, "but we are not victims, are victors." She turned to face Olanrewaju, who sat unmoved, his pride still intact. "You didn't just try to take my children. You tried to take my voice, but I found it." Her words pierced like arrows. The judge, visibly moved, declared Olanrewaju guilty on multiple counts: conspiracy to murder, child endangerment, attempted abduction, and criminal intimidation. As he was led away in cuffs, he turned one last time to look at Favour, expecting fear. What he saw instead was something worse: indifference. For the first time, Chief Olanrewaju realized he had lost everything. Months passed. The media frenzy around the trial faded. The cameras left, and life, for the first time in a long time, settled into a soft rhythm. The Martins renovated their home, not because it was broken, but because it held too many memories. Favour chose soft peach walls and sheer curtains that let the sunlight dance freely. The kitchen, once the site of poison and whispers, was redesigned into a family haven, filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fresh bread. "We're not running from the past," she told the twins. "We're repainting over pain with peace." Sam started therapy, not just for himself, but as an example to other fathers in his men's fellowship. "Protecting your home starts from protecting your mind," he said during a group session. The experience had changed him deeply. He no longer saw leadership as authority, but as stewardship. He showed up for his children, not just physically, but emotionally. He helped Victor through his fear of the dark and taught Victoria how to ride a bicycle without training wheels. And every evening, no matter how busy the day, they all ate dinner together, hands joined, prayers shared, stories told. The home had become sacred ground. Favour's Women's Circle blossomed into a registered initiative, the Fortress Foundation. They offered training, counseling, and a hotline for families navigating betrayal or domestic threats. Survivors from different walks of life began to reach out. One evening, a woman from Ibadan arrived quietly at their doorstep. "I heard what you survived," she whispered. "I think I'm living in it now." Favour took her hand and replied, "Then you're not alone anymore." What began as a storm had become a shelter. And through it all, the Martins learned that healing wasn't about forgetting the pain. It was about building something unshakable in its place. Love, like brick and mortar, was being laid again, this time with eyes wide open. The Martins' lives had changed, but not in the way trauma often scars and hardens. They had grown softer, wiser, and strangely more joyful. The children laughed freely again. Victor stopped drawing shadows and started writing short adventure stories, always ending with the hero rescuing someone he loved. Victoria, now a beacon of strength among her peers, was known as the little lioness at her after-school club. Even Kunle, whose betrayal had once tilted the household into chaos, had earned partial redemption. He stayed on as their driver under new terms, with honesty, accountability, and guarded trust. "Everyone deserves a second chance," Favour said one day, watching him help the twins carry school bags. "Even if they only get one." One quiet Saturday morning, Favour received a letter. It came from Gloria, handwritten from prison. The paper was creased and stained with what looked like tear marks. "Madam Favour," it began, "I know I don't deserve your eyes on this paper, but I wanted you to know your kindness still haunts me. They teach us about remorse here, but I learned about it the day you forgave me with silence. I hope your children are well. I hope they remember light. I hope I become someone different." Favour read it twice, then placed it in her prayer journal, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of what grace could do. "God didn't let me break," she whispered, "so I won't let others break either." Later that evening, the Martins hosted a small gathering in their garden, just close friends, supporters, and members of the Fortress Foundation. Fairy lights twinkled above. Children ran barefoot across the lawn. Sam raised a toast. "To the woman who saved us," he said, eyes full of emotion. "Not just from evil, but from fear." "To Favour." Everyone clapped, but she shook her head gently. "To God," she said, lifting her glass, "who taught us to survive the fire and still smell like roses." And in the center of it all, beneath the tree the twins once climbed to escape Gloria's watchful eyes, their laughter like music, full, fearless, and free. A year had passed since the chaos, and the Martins stood on new ground, deeper, steadier, and blooming. The trauma had not vanished, but it had transformed them. They had not merely survived evil, they had outlived it. On a cool Sunday morning, Favour woke before everyone else and stood by the window, watching the sun rise slowly across the horizon. Her hand moved gently across her belly, now slightly rounded. A new life was growing within her. She hadn't planned it, but it felt like divine timing, a gift, a symbol, a new beginning. Sam came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Another warrior," he whispered. Favour smiled, or a peacemaker. The twins had matured in ways even adults hadn't noticed. Victor was now a protector by instinct, quietly checking locks and offering hugs when his mother seemed overwhelmed. Victoria, still mischievous but more grounded, began journaling like her mother. "One day, I'll write the story of how we won," she told her class during show and tell. "But I'll call it the day the house spoke back." At church, the pastor often referenced their journey without names. "Some homes become battlegrounds," he once preached, "but with prayer, love, and truth, they become sanctuaries again." Every eye glanced toward Favour and Sam, who simply bowed their heads in humble acknowledgement. As the Martins gathered for an evening prayer on the anniversary of the night Gloria first entered their home, Favour brought out a new family journal. Its first page read, "For every storm that came, we grew deeper roots. For every lie told, we spoke louder truth. For every shadow cast, we lit stronger fires. This house stands, not because we were perfect, but because we chose to stay standing." Together they sang, not loud, not dramatic, just a soft, united song of victory heard only by the walls that had once held whispers and fear. And as their voices rose gently into the night, the house, rebuilt, redeemed, and at peace, finally exhaled. The seed planted through pain had blossomed into a legacy, and evil, which once danced boldly in their corridors, had been silenced by love. With hearts full and minds at ease, we bid farewell for now. Thank you for sharing this peaceful moment and this story with me. Rest well, and I look forward to our next adventure together.